you can tell about the health of the economy. Forget about the verbosity we hear, including from people like me, politicians. We can paint a very rosy picture. After we paint all that picture, many times we get backed up by the data, or the data betrays us. We can come and say, oh, we are doing very well, we are doing this and we are doing this, or we are doing badly, we are doing badly. But the figure that shows you the trajectory of an economy, it is the GDP growth, either growth in either way. So how do we measure this thing called GDP, which is the gross domestic product, wealth ya nchi, productivity ya nchi? If it's, for example, today is 100, that is all that we have produced. When we say about 4%, 4.7, 4.9, 5%, what do we mean? We mean that that wealth, the gross domestic product in terms of productivity, has grown by that much. But how is it calculated? Because it's upon knowing how it is calculated, then you go to the variables. All of you guys are CPAs here, and even those who are watching us online. And you know, in every formula, there is the right hand and the left side. The right side is the one you put, let's say X is equals to now all the other variables. In our case here, X is the GDP. What constitutes that? So that we know, when you say 8 is equals to 2 plus 1 plus 5, that is 8. 8 is equals to 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 2. That is also 8. So if you want to change the 8, then you either need to change this other side. So if you change this other side, what was 2 plus 1, you put it is 3 plus 2. You've already increased 3. So this other side automatically will be 11. So even the economy, you don't grow the economy by looking at the GDP. You grow the economy by looking at the variables that constitute that GDP. And what are those, so that we know in our decision making as a country and in our offices where we work, then what is it that we should be looking for so that the economy grows? Because when it grows, these things, my brothers and sisters, are not jargons I'm talking about. It's neither an economic lecture. It is about our lives. This thing I'm describing called GDP is about your pocket. It's about the quality of education Kenya offers. It is about the quality of our infrastructure. It is about the quality of where you live. So let's not break it down from your mind from being this jargon that is used by people. It's about you. And that's why I want us to be sequential in it. FCP, nipatie maji tafadhali. I think key point inahitaji maji kidogo. Now, and I'll be doing this so that we interact in the 30 minutes of interaction. Let's use the first one. We'll use the expenditure approach, the income approach, and of course, the production approach. Most of you know them. When you talk about GDP, there are those three things we put across. And forgive me, I'm starting with jargons. They'll make the point that I came to present here today. But we need to start there. When we talk about expenditure approach in measuring the wealth of a country and the growth of the GDP. So we see GDP is equals to what? We condense it to few variables because all the other variables will feed into that. We say it is consumption, this water I'm consuming, the clothes, the food you're eating here, the fuel. We say is GDP, you measure it using consumption plus private investments plus G. G is government. Government, G you can always substitute it to B. It is budget. What we read as budget is what is called G. And then plus net exports, which is, you put a bracket, X representing exports minus M representing imports. Reflect about that. Now, let's forget that we learned it in class. Just reflect now that you are already a CPA and an FCPA who is already working. Now, detach yourself from class now to a policy maker in your respective area. That what influences the economy is how we consume, plus how we invest, how we consume privately. Those are households and farms. Plus how we invest privately. Those are private investments. Plus then G, how the government spends money. Plus X minus M. What does that tell you? That all those variables are very important for an economy to grow. And we'll see how other economies have grown using those. So when you talk about growth of the economy, and you're still talking about deficit in our payments, trade with other countries, what are we really saying? When you talk about growth of GDP, and you are talking about decelerating private investments, what are we saying? Now that part we call G is what we look for and we look out to, all of us. How much is the budget? The GDP of many countries, the budget and the government expenditure only constitutes from around 17 to 25%. Can you imagine that? That the money we read as the budget, let's say 4.2 trillion, if you do the math, it will always constitute around 17 to 25% of the entire wealth. So it's about where we want to incentivize that matters, because the size is too small. Let's go to the second one. And the second one is the income approach. Income approach measures what? And by the way, the one I talked about expenditure is expending on the finished products. Economy uses finished products, not intermediate ones. The other one is what? Income. So when we talk about economic growth using the income approach, what do we measure with? Incomes. Can one of you just shout with a raise of hands kindly? Any kind of income you know about in the economy, or you as a person? Yes, my brother? Salary. Yes, that's called wages. That's good. Number two. Actually write that. That's part of it. Wages is a return of labor. Is what you are paid to offer your labor.
Interest income.
Interest income. Very good. Write that. By the way, you are already economists, you guys. Number three.
Farming income.
Farming income. That must be specific. You call it profit. Now, you don't call it farming income, call it profit. Remember, we are dealing with final incomes. So what you call now, the return of capital is called profit. So holistically call it profit. Even interest income is also part of it, what was said by my sister. The other one? Dividends. You can call it dividends, but it may form part of the profits. But just write it. Rent. Remember, rent is an income to the landlord. It's also a return of capital into some way. Any other? Let me see whether we've forgotten. Taxes. Tax is an income to government. Remember, government is also an agent of the economy. They receive, they expend. They are also part of the G up there. I hope you have gotten what I mean. The incomes, we measure the incomes received, we aggregate them. That is also a measure of how the GDP is performing. Even subsidies is an income to the recipient. When the government, for example, gives a Nuga subsidy, it's not the shopkeeper who is receiving the subsidy. It is you, the end consumer. So it becomes an income. Now, let's go to the final one, so that now I go to the main point. This is just the groundwork. The other one is called the production approach. And to me, this is usually the most important. And we'll dwell most of our points around this one. Production approach of the economy measures all the goods produced at the final level, but it segments them per sector. It segments those per sector. But there are only 3 sectors in this approach. One is called primary production. What is primary production? Primary production is anything in any sector that gives or produces commodities without any value adding. So one is agriculture. When you eat a mango, it is all natural. But when you take mango juice, it ceases to be the primary production. When you dig mchanga ya kujenga, that is also a resource. So to that extent, then, agriculture is one part of primary production. Mining is also part of primary production. Kwa sababu, just ukinunua mawe, simeshika? Ukinunua mawe ya darugo, nilikuwa nimesema hiyo kwa sababu watu wanasema maiga ya darugo. Ukinunua mawe ya darugo, what are you buying? Have you ever asked yourself, you know why human beings sometimes we chase them, how we are creators? Just look at this house. What has a human being created in this house? Just ask yourself, mawe iliendewa darugo. So who created that mawe? It's not a human being. They just took, shaped it, and built. This wood over here, who created it? It's no human being who created this wood. Even this down here is wooden. So if you actually look at it that way, you realize that nature is more sophisticated than us. So primary production, hiyo mawe, mchanga, is also part of mining. Fisheries is also primary production. Forestry is primary production. When you hear the government has removed moratorium on logging in forest, is also a part of the economy, primary production. Now, in Kenya, we call it agric. It's like agriculture, but it encompasses other things. Approximately, it accounts for 18% of our GDP. Please write there because we'll be interacting about that. Write it as a formula. GDP is equals primary production, then unaandika hapo chini what is primary production of the things I've listed. Then, the second part, plus, the second is called secondary production. Secondary production is manufacturing and the associated. So manufacturing, transport, storage, transport is not there, sorry. Manufacturing and anything around manufacturing. Value addition. Industry. That accounts for 17% of our GDP, approximately. Now, the last one, plus, is called tertiary. Tertiary accounts, tertiary is banking, insurance. All that you do, most of the CPAs, is in service because you offer your brain. The biggest resource for you in your office is not a vehicle, is not the building, it is you. So you're also part of this now. Banking, insurance, hospitality, that is tourism holistically. Transport is also part of it. Transport, there is a thin line. The part that there is a consumption of fuel in a daga industry. But where there is, in terms of service, it is in service. Storage, all that. Now, look at this now. All those things is a circle. It's the same thing I have said if you look at it, zoom it. Because I've talked about expenditure approach. consumption plus investments plus government plus net imports. Then the other one, I've talked about incomes, income approach. Number one income is tax. But tax is the one that is government up there. The other approach that had government expenditure, and this is the other one that has tax, those one cancels out. Because tax is what becomes government expenditure. When you talk about profit down here, and anything else that is a return on capital, is what becomes enhanced investment up there. What is wages in the income approach is what becomes consumption in the other expenditure approach. But they are important, and they'll be important as I make the point I want to make. So now that Kenya is where we are, let's say an economy of a GDP of 18 trillion shillings, approximately. Now, what are the low-lying fruits in those formulas that then can bring about the expansion of the left-hand side, which is the GDP? But let's look at some of the economies and how they have evolved so that we come now to Kenya. Now, if you look at the UK, the US, they started with what? They started with investments, but investments for what? Please get me, because in my opinion, I think if we crack this nut as Kenya, then there is so much we can do. They started by investments, growing investments. It's called capital accumulation. But after you accumulate capital, it is supposed to be used for what? When you accumulate capital, remember you are importing this capital as a growing economy. But I'm still in the UK, US, when they were growing. So when you import capital, these are machinery. Remember, this is an import. When you import a lot, you are damaging the economy because you're part of X minus M. So all manner of investments in manufacturing, how the US did it, the UK did it earlier, China, South Korea, and the rest, you must grow industry to stimulate net exports. If you only do manufacturing to satisfy local demand, that manufacturing actually usually have a damaging effect to a large extent to the economy. Because many times you realize the machinery you've imported to do what you're calling manufacturing may have costed you more than actually importing the finished product. In my master's in the University of Nairobi, I looked for data for Kenya for the last 40 years. And my topic was about primary production, manufacturing, and the GDP growth. So I had already concluded, like many of us here, manufacturing, it leads to economic growth. If I never did anything with data, that is what I could have written in my report. Now listen. I took data for the last 40 years for Kenya, tabulated all this data. This was the outcome. That the growth of manufacturing in Kenya for the last 40 years has led to decline in the GDP growth. Can you just imagine what I'm trying to say? It seems like, I'm sure you're asking yourself, what kind of paper is that? Let me repeat. The conclusion of the data was 1 unit growth in manufacturing leads to 8 unit decline in the GDP. How is that even possible? Because obviously we know manufacturing must always lead to economic growth. And I'm talking about their movements. The growth by 1 unit in manufacturing leads to a decline in 8 units in the the GDP growth. That looks like an oxymoron. But now, let's come back home. Na tulizane maswali hapa. In the last 40 years, has the economy of Kenya been growing or not? Don't fear, just raise up your hand. FCPA, yes, it has been growing. It's only few sessions we had a decline, like Corona time. Even over post-election violence, we had an increase, but it was marginal. Let me repeat, has the GDP in Kenya been growing for the last 40 years? Wacha nikuniangalia namna hiyo. Has it been growing, yes or no? It has been growing, that is the truth. Okay. Has the manufacturing as a composition of GDP been growing or declining? Now that is where the answer lies. So, have you seen what I mean? For the last 40 years, the economy has been growing. But for the last 40 years, the composition of manufacturing as a share of GDP has been declining. Remember what I talked about, 17% secondary production is not just manufacturing. Manufacturing is part of it. If you remove manufacturing from the 17%, it is around 8%. Do you know, in the 60s, the composition of manufacturing as a share of GDP was higher than now. That is why. But these are the real reasons. What do we call manufacturing in Kenya? No. What do we call manufacturing? Kwanza wale wasuti.
In some cases, we refer to it as juakali.
Juakali, that's one. Now let's come to Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Is there anyone representing any company which is part of Kenya Association of Manufacturers here? Or anyone who knows about it? Just mention one company which is part of Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Mention one. Yes, my brother.
Bidco Oil Company.
Nyamazia hapo kwanza. Somebody to, I need the lady in green, please come. Tulisema hii si darasa. Wacha to disomesha hapa. Hapa. Somebody to give us a pen. And guys, I didn't come here to motivate you. I came here so that we keep thinking about Kenya critically. So write Bidco. You wanted to say the second one? Say the second one. Very good. Any other? Kenya Association of Manufacturers. I want you to give me who are the members. Yes? Yes, yes, sir.
I was mentioning KVM, Kenya Vehicle Manufacturers.
Very good. KVM, Kenya Vehicles Manufacturers. So we can put even Isuzu there. Is it? Toyota Kenya. Let's put all of them there. Number 3.
Flour exporting companies.
Higher flour. Floriculture.
Yeah, floriculture and even commercial properties.
Commercial properties. Let's first put that star. And I want us to reason together. Floriculture is primary production. We are dealing with manufacturers. Kenya Association of Manufacturers. But that's a good point. Put a star. It is not part of CAM. Yes, sir. Yeah, please say it.
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. Yes.
Mabati Limited.
Mabati, yeah?
Cement producing companies, Simba Cement and all the rest.
Weka cement producing companies. Did I hear Mabati? Put that a Mabati. So call it Mabati companies, all of them combined. All of them. The last one. EABL. Put it there. Very good. Now, wacha tunyamazia hapo kwanza. And I want us to be critical because manufacturing is what will help Kenya. But let's look at what do we actually call manufacturing. And if you collect the data I took is in public domain. Go take it, collect it. You see, for the last 40 years, has the growth because the decline of manufacturing as a factor of GDP, if it's declining, then the GDP should be declining. But now we see they are inverse. That we agree the economy has been growing, but we also agree even with figures that the composition of manufacturing as a share of GDP has been declining. Number one, we talked about BIDCO. BIDCO and all edible oils companies, critically let's think, are they manufacturers? Think. Go back to the formula we talked about. GDP is equals to consumption plus investments plus government plus X minus M. So in that formula, BIDCO, they do investment because they have machinery. But they also stimulate our consumption. We consume edible oils. But now go to X minus M. If you define let me not use a specific name. If you define edible oils companies in Kenya, are they manufacturing companies or are they importers? That is the point. Because if we continue deriding ourselves and lying to ourselves, we will continue doing the same thing, but expecting different results, which we are not going to get. We will have edible oils companies become manufacturing companies that help our economy if two things happen. They source or the intermediate, they source the intermediate product here. Intermediate means to make edible oils, whatever you need to make it, if it's not coming from Kenya, you are an importer. If 80% of a packet of edible oil when you buy it, if 80% of the cost you are paying is an import, then you are harming the economy more than you are stimulating it. That's one. But number two, they'll become truly manufacturing companies when they start manufacturing for other markets, not just for Kenya. Why is that important? So that the machinery they have imported to do whatever thing they are doing with edible oils, their value becomes less than the production you are making. So that you cover up for your net imports. You cover up for your net imports by exporting. So I wish they were importing these intermediate goods and products, manufacture edible oils, then sell them at a premium in the outside markets. But if you only produce for the local markets, and the bigger component is an import, that is the reason why there is no manufacturing that is happening there. The second one here, my sister wrote, is vehicle manufacturing companies. In the CAM meetings, these companies sit in front. Tell me one vehicle manufacturing company in Kenya. The ones you mentioned are not. KVM is not. Isuzu is not. Now look at it this way. When you go to Isuzu, I can use Isuzu because it's a public company. Government has a stake in it. If you go to Isuzu yard today, is it manufacturing that is happening there or is it assembly? Now, the value of assembly versus the value of what you imported, what is higher? The value you are adding to this part and this is only assembling them. Between that value of assembly and the value you accrued by these imports, which value is higher? It is import. So is that an import company or is it a manufacturing company? You may see it. I think those two examples suffices. That, as we talk about manufacturing in Kenya, let's now stop wearing suits and speaking big-worded English. Let us go to where the rubber meets the road and confront the problem there and then. If you go to a country like Morocco, Morocco is now overtaking South Africa as an auto economy in Africa. But they are doing real manufacturing. They are not just doing assembly. So those real manufacturing are important because you must be mindful when you are a Mabati company and you are importing iron ore. So what are you doing? Just compressing mabati and selling. So we must, as a country, look at, if we are talking about manufacturing, it is actually real, but it also target outside market so that you pay for your net imports. You pay for your net imports by also exporting. Hey, it's so much jargon today, lakini mutanisamehe. I'll highlight a few points as I go to the close. How do we enhance productivity as a country? But before that, so that this makes sense, those formulas I made you right. I talked about US. US grew by what? Starting by manufacturing. Manufacturing for what? Exports. UK had done exactly the same before. How did South Korea grow? South Korea came up with a model called export-led growth economy. The economy of South Korea grew on a model which is actually now studied, called export growth economic model. How did they conceptualize it? General Park was the president of South Korea from around 1961. Was actually a general, meaning you know how he took the power. But he was a good man. He minded about his country more than he minded about how much money he would make. And he actually was able to check where the problem of South Korea was and how it could be solved. And I'm using South Korea because the size of Kenya is exactly the size of South Korea in terms of population. We are in our 50 millions, both of us. But we were the same in terms of the economic GDP per capita. In the 1960s, we were the same. But now, currently, a South Korean is 12 times you. So if you earn 100,000, a South Korean income is times 12 of what you have. Is it an oil-producing company? No. Do they have rare earth minerals? Not more than Kenya. So what is this that they did? And how can Kenya do something related? They came up with export growth economic model, where the economy needed to grow not by producing for consumption, but producing for exports. General Park formed a committee which was meeting monthly to evaluate how the exports model or the exports figures are running in South Korea. And in the 19 years he was president of South Korea, he attended all those meetings personally. All. What was the ramification? The exports of South Korea grew by over 360 times. Then they went ahead to check, how can we grow this economy even further? What do we need? Because you can say, oh, we have a committee then to grow our exports. We must go deeper, specifics. So South Korean model, some people actually say South Korea grew on corruption. Corruption is defined by using policies to benefit private. South Korea was deliberate to the level where they combined private sector and government together for the sake of the economy. So they created a category of companies called chaebols. Chaebols were meant to be big exporters. And what was the basis? The basis was this. If we needed to have, or if we want to have a company that can compete globally, let's say in production of zips, the other one, Signal, I don't know which one, Telegram, these other ones. So you are here, when you wake up in the morning, you are here literally putting money in the US government basket. That's service industry. We must have companies that go to fetch money to bring home. We scale using the global market. Our banks must never, central banks should force them. You must look for regional and continental and global markets. Chaguvu. Because you need this money. Again, Georgina, I think I answered. There is one that was asked through a question here by CPA Sabuni about tolling of roads and the issue of Mau Summit and what happens. This remains my opinion. In our region, there is no country, other country, that is doing the experiments we are doing of making public infrastructure expensive to use. And as I talk about capital flows, capitals are impersonal. When you have money, 10 billion, and you're a global investor, remember you belong to no country when it comes to money. You belong to profit. The only goal is to maximize your profit. So, suppose we have $1 billion somewhere looking for a place to come or to go. Inatafuta pahali tu ya kwenda ilale hiyo pesa. Pesa, $1 billion, inatafuta tu kanyumba, inatafuta a roof to go there and hide. So, as that money is looking for a roof over its head, it is impersonal. It doesn't care the name of the country. It cares about how much is my return and what is the ease of me doing business there. So you look around in our region, Tanzania, Rwanda, DRC, Uganda, and Ethiopia. You have $1 billion. The first level of ease of doing business, infrastructure, is it there? Yes. How is it? What's the cost of using this infrastructure? That's where decisions starts to be made. What's the cost of electricity in this place? Decisions already start now to solidify. What's the cost of using roads to transport my things? Decisions is already made. So when I talk about roads, it's not about politics. It's about the economy. You have the road we are dueling called Mau Summit is a corridor road. It's going to another country and another and another. So you come and realize only the part of Kenya is being told. As it is now as we talk, is only the part of Kenya. What are we telling investors really? We're just telling investors, look for alternatives. We are a premium economy. A premium economy growing at 4.9%. We are a premium economy. You look for, if you don't want to pay toll, get elsewhere. My friends, we have not reached there as an economy. We need everyone. We need all this capital to flow in. So my take has always been, Mau Summit Road is being used by Kenyans who pay PAYE, who pay VAT, who pay fuel levy. Fuel levy is supposed to build roads. So they are already taxed enough to build an infrastructure called road. And then you make them pay at all. This is like renting a house. You are paying rent. You're already paying rent. But because the rent is on check-off, muli-agree na landlord, kwenye unawork, anakutumia pesa through check-off, unakatwa direct. You know, kuna hiyo kitu inafanya kitu psychological. Ukikatwa pesa kwa transformer. Transformer level meaning hata haikufiki. Huwa hata huifanyii hesabu, si ndio? So because huifanyii hesabu kama vile unalipa tax, you already paying rent. And then somebody is coming to tell you, where you pay rent, you need to pay money for a living levy. That's what you are doing. And you'll be paying it daily. You'll already be paying rent, which is well valued, and you pay promptly. And it's even cut before it reaches you. Unajua ile kukatia stima kwa transformer? Ile hata hawadili na mita, yani unakatiwa vile huwezi jirudishia. So ushakatiwa mshahara hapo na umelipa fuel levy. By the time you are fueling your vehicle, the money for government reaches, inafikia government before ya yule anakuuzia mafuta. So you are already paying rent, and then at the landlord tells you, you pay rent of 25,000. You'll be paying a living levy of 1,000 per month. Hata inapita rent. That is not sensible. That's what I've been saying. And it's an experiment that will not work, because the economy of Kenya cannot isolate itself to our regional economy, because investors will definitely look to the other economies. Look at some of the decisions we make. Kenya grew by 4.9% last year. How much Tanzania, with elections, grew faster than us? With elections. Museveni grew faster than us. Uganda. It grew by around 7%. Tanzania was over 6%. Rwanda, double digit. Last quarter, they grew by double digit. Double digit means over 10%. The economy of Ethiopia will be growing by double digit this year. And we are here saying we are a premium economy, growing at we are last in our region, and we are here touring roads. What mathematics is that? So what I'm saying is, and I'm talking about a government, Kenyans now have learned about the psychology of how this government thinks. You don't need to read an encyclopedia. You can already tell when you see an action what is following. Juzi nikaona expansion ya Rironi. Nikasema it's fine. It's wrong overdue. These people need this road because they pay all the taxes. But there is always a rider. I don't know why it is so difficult for this government to do just something good without something bad behind the carpet. Sijui kwa nini. Why can't you just do a good thing to Kenyans? Build a road. We clap. We move forward. But every time you see a good announcement from this government, and you know that as Kenyans, there is always a rider. We are expanding Rironi, Mau Summit. Tuna clap. After clapping, you are told, lakini kuna kitu kidogo itafanyika. You'll be paying to use. It's like me, I'm finishing areas. It's like me going to Kiharu, call a parents meeting as the MP. I've called a parents meeting. Shairis have been said, tupigie mheshimiwa makofi yamefika. And they know CDF, I oversight CDF. So they are waiting for a pronouncement, because they had told me they are short of 2 classes in the school. I want you to go with me properly. I go to a school. They want 2 new classes to be built. And they call me as the MP because they know there is CDF. And who is CDF? It is them who pay taxes. So it's their money. After Sairis are said for me, na makofi, na amuka. Habari ya wazazi. How are you learners? Nimekuja na mtu hapa, anaitwa contractor. Nimusimamishe. Atajenga hizo darasa 2. Mnasema ni pesa gapi kila darasa? 700,000 and 50. So we need 1.5 million. 1.5 million. Very, very good. Nimekuja. Huyu contractor atajenga hizi darasa na ataanza kesho. Na kwanza na point hiyo contractor. Wewe unasikia? Ujenge hii darasa within 3 months nipata imeisha. After that, wazazi wamefika makofi. Niwaambie, lakini ikiisha, for the last 3 years, utakuwa unapea mtoto shilingi 100 kusomea hiyo darasa. Atakuwa analipa shilingi 100, aitikizwe yasome. Have I provided any solution to those parents? Are you getting me, you guys? So you come around the road, you already pay taxes. We should build it for you. And then you are telling you, you also need to pay for it. So that's why I'm saying the expansion of Mombasa Road, the expansion of all these other roads, even if you want to toll whatever you are building, at least spare Kenyans from paying for the roads that were built for free by the previous governments. Those of the other governments had other mechanisms to use other taxes correctly, to use our borrowed monies correctly and optimally. They were able to build free to use public goods. Please, whatever you want to expand, but leave the previous road free as it used to be. Just the expressway from Westlands, you have a choice to use the down one. But you can't say you are building at hii ya gorofa, ati utoro mpaka hii ya chini, ilijengwa hapo bereni. So Mombasa Road ikiexpandiwa, ile ilijengwa na Kibaki, ile ilijengwa na Kenyatta, na Moi, na Kibaki, na Uhuru, hiyo yote hatutalipa. Kama unataka kulipisha, wewe lipisha ile unataka kujenga. Thika Road ikijengwa, kama inawekwa expressway, kama ni ya gorofa ama ni underground, sawa. Lakini ilijengwa na President Mwai Kibaki, msirete hiyo cleverness ya kutaka kutoro hiyo barabara, kwa sababu hiyo hatutalipa. Asante.
Thank you.